If you've ever thought about getting into the business of selling cars, you've probably bumped into this one term that sounds, well, kind of complicated: the auto dealer bond. It's a requirement in pretty much every state, but what on earth is it? All right, let's break it down and figure out exactly what it is and why it's so important.
So, let's just start with the big question, right? When you walk onto a car lot, what's really in place to make sure that dealer is operating honestly and by the book? It's not just about hoping for the best. There's an actual financial tool designed to solve this exact problem. And that gets us to the absolute core of why these bonds even exist. It's all about protecting the car buyer. You see, before a state gives anyone a license to sell cars, it wants some kind of financial guarantee that the public isn't going to get taken for a ride. It's all about building trust.
And we're talking about protection from some really serious stuff. Things like a dealer illegally rolling back the odometer, or maybe they sell you a car but then just never transfer the title into your name. Or even worse, outright fraud or just pocketing the sales tax you paid. A bond is there as a financial safety net if any of that happens.
Okay, so we've laid out the problem. Now, what's the solution? What exactly is this thing called a dealer bond? It's not nearly as complex as it sounds, but you gotta know, it's a very specific kind of financial product.
At its heart, it's basically a three-way handshake. First, you have the principal. That's the car dealer. They're the one making a promise to play by the rules. Then there's the obligee. That's the state, and by extension, you and me, the public. We're the ones being protected. And finally, you have the surety. That's the company issuing the bond and putting their money where their mouth is to guarantee the dealer's promise.
And here is the single most important thing to get straight. A dealer bond is not an insurance policy for the dealer. Think of it more like a line of credit that backs up their promise to follow the law. It's not a shield for the business, it's a safety net for the customer.
You know, this whole bond versus insurance thing is where most people get tripped up. So let's just put them side by side. The difference is absolutely critical, especially when it comes to who has to pay if something goes wrong. Okay, so here's the breakdown. A normal insurance policy protects the dealer. If there's an accident or some kind of loss, the insurance company pays out. Simple. But a surety bond, it protects the consumer. If the bond company has to pay out a claim because the dealer did something wrong, the dealer is then on the hook to pay that bond company back. Every single dollar.
Exactly. This just nails it. With insurance, you transfer the risk to the insurance company. With the bond, the financial responsibility always comes back to the dealer who caused the problem in the first place. It forces accountability.
All right, so if the dealer has to pay everything back if there's a claim, what are they actually paying for up front? Let's get into the real dollars and cents of what these bonds actually cost a dealership. So you'll see a big number like this one thrown around a lot, $50,000. Big states like California and Texas require a bond this size. But, and this is a huge but, that is not what the dealer pays. That 50 grand is what's called the bond amount. It's the maximum amount of protection available if things go sideways. The dealer's actual cost? It's just a tiny fraction of that, a small percentage they pay each year, and that fee is called the premium.
So what decides that percentage? Well, it's almost entirely based on the owner's personal credit score. The bond company is basically trying to figure out how risky is this person. If you've got excellent credit, you're seen as low risk, so you get a super low premium, maybe as low as 1%.
Let's put that into actual dollars. For that same $50,000 bond, a dealer with fantastic credit might only pay about $500 a year. But someone with a more challenging credit history, they could be looking at a couple $1,000s. It's a direct reflection of risk.
Now, it is super important to know that these rules are not the same everywhere. Every single state gets to set its own requirements, and believe me, the differences can be massive. Let's take a quick trip across the country to see what I mean. And yeah, the range is just huge. On the low end, you've got places like New Jersey and DC where you only need a $10,000 bond. Then you've got that common $50,000 number. But then look at Maryland. Depending on sales volume, a dealer there might need a bond for up to $300,000.
So here's a peek at some of the states with the most car dealerships. You can see California and Texas are right there together at $50,000, which means the typical premium is going to fall somewhere between $500 and $1,500 for someone with good credit. But then Florida, another huge car state, only requires a $25,000 bond, which pretty much cuts that estimated cost in half.
So what's the big takeaway here? What's the bottom line? Really, it's that an auto dealer bond isn't optional. It's a fundamental step you have to take to get licensed. It's literally the key that lets you open your doors to sell cars legally.
And the good news is that getting a bond is usually pretty simple. It's often just a three-step dance. You fill out a quick application online, you can get approved the very same day, and then you just get your bond certificate to file with the DMV. That's it.
Okay, so let's just recap the absolute must-knows. 1. No bond, no license. End of story. 2. It's all about protecting the consumer, not the dealer. 3. Your cost is a small, manageable premium, not that giant bond amount. And 4. You've got to know your state's rules because they are all over the map.
Which kind of leaves us with one final thought. For someone trying to start a dealership, this whole bond thing can feel like just another piece of red tape, right? Another cost you have to cover. But for all of us who buy cars, it's a critical part of the system that lets us make a huge purchase with at least a little more peace of mind. So is it just a barrier? Or is it maybe the very foundation that trust is built on?